Good morning.
Good morning. This is the time and place for the Planning Hearing Officer hearing for October 28, 2020. My name is Chris Bagdikian, and I will be conducting the hearing as hearing officer. Due to the COVID-19 novel coronavirus and health recommendations from the LA County Health Department, this hearing is being conducted public virtually with no members of the public present. The public is encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of their homes to practice social distancing. The meeting can be viewed on local cable TV and is being streamlined online at the city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Again, repeat, 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. We have one case today on the agenda involving a discretionary permit application. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will read the description of the application and the request. I will read the reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. The case planner will make a brief overview presentation of the case, give analysis, and make a recommendation. The applicant will then be connected by telephone, stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. Others in support or in opposition to the application and interested parties will be connected by telephone to give comments, again clearly stating both name and address, and they'll be given a 3-minute time limit to speak. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments if desired in response to testimonies given by preceding speakers within a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will be closed and the case will be taken under submission. Findings. If the evidence present in the application and at the time of the hearing meets the required findings set forth in the municipal code, then the project can either be approved or approved with conditions. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Regarding a decision, after the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and mailing address. The date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. Regarding appeals, under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30.62 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal must contact the case planner to obtain forms and information regarding the appeal process and submittal. Public notice. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, placed in the local newspaper, as well as mailed to property occupants within a 500-foot distance from the subject property. I'd like to also inform everyone that the official proceedings of the planning hearing officer's hearing are being televised live and may be viewed online on the city's website. Coming to the case on today's agenda. Okay, the case on today's agenda is for the property located at 2960 St. Gregory Road, and the application is for a variance, case number PVAR 2002984. A brief description of the request. The applicant is requesting approval for a 925 square foot first floor addition and a new 1,381 square foot second story addition to an existing 1,876 square foot single family residence with a two-car garage built in 1962 without providing the minimum number of code required parking spaces and meeting the minimum interior setback. The city's zoning code prescribes that dwelling units in the R1R zone with a cumulative gross floor area between 3,500 square feet and 5,999 square feet require 3 covered and enclosed parking spaces. After the proposed addition, the house will be 4,182 square feet and will require 1 additional parking space, covered and enclosed parking space. The city's zoning code also prescribes that all buildings and structures permitted prior to May 2, 1991 shall be set back from interior property lines not less than 5 feet for buildings over 20 feet and equal to or less than 30 feet in height. The existing residence is increasing in height from 18 feet 2 inches to 29 feet 2 inches, and thus requires a minimum 5-foot interior setback. The applicant is requesting approval of a variance to allow the project without providing the 3rd covered and enclosed parking space and maintaining the 3-foot 6-inch interior setback. Environmental determination. The project is exempt from CEQA review as a Class 3 new construction or conversion of small structures exemption pursuant to Section 15303 of the state CEQA guidelines because it is an addition to a single-family residence. Regarding comments from other city departments, from the Housing Division, there were no comments. From the Public Works Engineering Division, there were no comments. Or actually, they responded no comments. Glendale Water and Power had no comment. Public Works, Maintenance, Services, and Urban Forestry had no comment on the project. And Mr. Kiesel If I may ask, did we receive any comments from Building and Safety?
I believe we did. I'm surprised they're not in there. They typically do have comments. Most of the time they are just their standard comments. I can look in my files.
Probably general comments to comply with the building code.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. We also received several comments from the public and the neighbors. A couple of them were attached to the staff report, which was provided online. One is a comment from a homeowner at 2943 St. Gregory Road. And stating there is ample parking in the street. Regarding additional comments that were received as of yesterday, there are many comments received from neighboring property owners. We will post these online. Some are in opposition, some are in favor of the project. We will post these online and so that we can proceed with this case this morning. Continuing with the case. Now, if I may ask Mr. Kiesel to make a brief presentation regarding the proposal and the staff recommendation.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Begdikian. Good morning. The applicant is requesting approval of a 925 square foot first floor addition and a new 1,381 square foot second floor to an existing 1,876 square foot single family residence. The residence is located at 2960 St. Gregory Road. The first floor addition will be located at the rear or the south side of the existing residence, and the second floor will be both over a portion of the existing residence as well as the proposed addition. After the proposed construction, the house will be 4,182 square feet. The existing residence is 18 feet 2 inches in height. After the proposed addition, it will be 29 feet 2 inches in height. The residence is located on a 11,821 square foot lot on the south side of St. Gregory Road between Hollywell Place and Cornwall Drive. The subject lot is in the R1R zone, floor area District 2. Dwellings in the R1R zone, as Chris has previously mentioned, with a floor area between 3,500 square feet and 5,999 square feet, require 3 covered and enclosed parking spaces. In addition to the house, the subject site also includes a 20 by 20 foot garage. As mentioned previously, the proposed addition, after the proposed addition, the house will be 4,182 square feet, and therefore will require a one additional covered and enclosed parking space. The applicant is requesting approval of a variance to allow the 4,182 square foot a residence without providing the third covered and enclosed parking space. The second variance, the city zoning code also prescribes that buildings built prior to May 2nd, 1991 shall be set back from the interior property lines not less than 5 feet for buildings over 20 feet and equal to or less than 30 feet in height. As mentioned previously, the existing residence is increasing in height from a little over 18 feet to a little over 29 feet, and thus requires a minimum 5-foot interior setback. The applicant is requesting approval of a variance to allow an approximately 6 square foot portion of the existing residence to be less than the minimum required 5-foot interior setback and maintain the 3-foot 6-inch east interior setback. Staff is recommending to deny the variance for the garage, for the third garage, and approve the setback variance. With regard to the variance for the third car garage, while staff acknowledges that there are practical difficulties in providing it, staff does not believe it would result in an unnecessary hardship. The intent of the parking regulations is to ensure the provisions of suitable off-street parking spaces and to provide public safety by lessening traffic congestion on the public streets. And specifically in this case, the subject code section requires additional parking to be provided as the house grows in size such that it can accommodate more occupants, often resulting in more cars and drivers. The topography of an existing development on the site really precludes constructing an additional garage without significant alterations to the site. The subject site is very steep adjacent to the street, and the area contains 6 oak trees. An existing swimming pool is located immediately east of the garage, and then stairs leading to the residence, as well as the residence itself, is located south of the garage. In fact, as currently developed, the driveway and improvements adjacent to the garage restrict access of a second car into the existing 2-car garage. The driveway leading from the street to the garage is approximately 80 feet long and is capable of storing cars. However, its width and slope limit the attractiveness of this option to provide on-street tandem parking. Denying the variance request, however, would not result in an unnecessary hardship. As I mentioned, a total first floor, second floor addition of 2,316 square feet is proposed to the residence, making the residence almost 4,200 square feet, which is the maximum allowed by code on this site, and almost 700 square feet over the limit for providing a 2-car garage. The applicant could nearly double the size of the existing residence while still complying with the parking requirements contained in the zoning code. With regard to the setback variance, strictly applying the provisions of the interior setback regulations in the present case would result in practical difficulties and would result in unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the purpose and intent of the ordinance. The intent of the interior setback requirement is to ensure a degree of separation between buildings to achieve appropriate levels of privacy, light, and air circulation. The existing 1-story residence was constructed with an east interior setback of 3 feet 6 inches, which for approximately 50 years has fulfilled the purposes of the setback requirement. The first floor addition and the new second story will comply with the current 5-foot setback requirement, interior setback requirement for the R1R zone. To comply with the present interior setback standards, would require demolition of approximately 6 square feet of the residence. It's a triangular portion of the residence, a bedroom. And this demolition would result in an unnecessary hardship given that the house has existed for a significant period of time. The original fenestration in the bedroom of the residence would be lost, and adjacent neighbors are a minimum of about 45 feet away. The R1R zone is intended to preserve and protect the low-density residential neighborhood in hillside areas. The zoning designation of the property and its use are consistent. The subject property is zoned for single-family development and currently contains a single-family residence. The subject lot is about average in size in the surrounding neighborhood. The property, as I said before, is steeply sloped and contains oak trees around its perimeter. The remainder of the site, the interior of the site, was graded in the early 1960s to develop the existing home. There are no conditions applicable to the property that do not generally apply to other property in the R1R zone or surrounding neighborhood. The applicant can almost double the size of the existing residence, realizing a substantial beneficial use of the property while remaining in compliance with the zoning regulations regarding parking. The applicant is proposing to add a second story to the existing contemporary house. Large windows are found throughout the residence, which is really a character-defining feature of this style of house. Requiring demolition of an approximately 6 square foot portion of the existing eastern bedroom would result in the removal of original window, as well as an awkward clipped angle in one of the bedroom walls. Granting the variance to allow the proposed addition will not be materially detrimental or injurious to the property. Features of the property, including steep slope and oak trees adjacent to the street, will remain. The addition will not be significantly visible at its proposed location to surrounding properties or the neighborhood. Parking can be provided on site. However, allowing the substantial addition to proceed without requiring the third garage may be materially detrimental to the public welfare and improvements to the neighborhood. The residence after the addition will be, as I said before, almost 4,200 square feet, and it will be one of the largest houses in the neighborhood. The extent of the proposed addition is excessive. The area is located in a high fire hazard zone and traversed by narrow, windy streets. While the long driveway can accommodate off-street parking in a tandem arrangement, the attractiveness and feasibility of this option is really reduced due to the narrowness of the driveway as well as the slope. The subject property is zoned for single-family residential and is developed with a single-family residence. The zoning designation of the property and use are consistent. The use of the property as a single-family home will not be changed as a result of the proposed addition. The request to maintain the 3-foot 6-inch interior setback as opposed to providing the code-compliant 5-foot setback is a sensitive alternative. Finally, that concludes my presentation. As Mr. Bagdikian mentioned, we have received a number of comments from the neighborhood, both for and against the project. Again, staff is recommending denial of the garage variance and approval of the setback variance. I've got a quick PowerPoint presentation that I can also go through and sort of summarize what's going on. So this is the subject site. It's outlined in red. You can see St. Gregory is immediately north, and Chevy Chase is sort of north of that. The site plan of the site, the brown outline recognizes the approximate location of the existing driveway that you can see on the site plan. The green outline is the location of the existing garage. And then the circled red outline is the location of the area of the house within the current 5-foot setback, or within the 5-foot required setback. First floor addition, outlined in green, is the area proposed for the first floor addition. Again, the red outline is the area of the house within the 5-foot setback. This is the second floor addition, and you can see the outline of the first floor above it. North elevation of the house. This would be considered sort of the front elevation. The south elevation, the east elevation, and this is the elevation where there is the slight encroachment into the interior yard. Then finally, the west elevation. Got some photos of the driveway. This is the driveway leading up to the house. The garage, you can see the stairs immediately to the right. Front of the house. And this is the area within the setback. Rear of the house. And then finally, the recommendation staff. The planning hearing officer, staff is recommending the planning hearing officer deny the variance to allow the expansion of the residence above 3,500 square feet without providing the third car garage, and approve the variance to maintain the 3-foot 6-inch interior setback instead of the required 5-foot interior setback. Now, I would note that the setback variance is necessitated by the proposed second-story addition. Had a one-story addition been proposed, that setback variance of 3 feet 6 inches would not have been necessary. It's only necessary because the house goes from a configuration of under 20 feet to a configuration or height of over 20 feet. So that concludes my presentation. We have a number of people on the phone to comment. We also have the applicant.
Mr. Kiesel, before we get to the public comments, can we go back in the PowerPoint slides to the west elevation?
Sure.
If it's feasible. If not,
Let me try. Ooh. Give me a second.
no problem. Let's move on, and then we can
Okay.
go to it.
Okay. Wait, you know what? I think I figured it out. Yeah, okay, sorry about that, but I think, I'm sorry, what elevation?
The right side west elevation. Yeah, that one.
Okay, yes.
This is a view of the building facing the garage, right? Is the garage that rectangular space right in the center of the drawing above the label of the west elevation? Would that be the garage door?
No. Basically, the west elevation faces St. Gregory, and the garage is at a lower elevation, but you would see the garage door if this elevation extended further left. So it's at a lower elevation and really not attached to the house. This, this area right here is the front door. And so steps come up here and then go down this way, and the garage would basically be in this area.
Okay, so the garage is entirely at a lower level than the
Correct.
house.
Correct.
Do we have any cross sections that show the layout?
We may have some in the file. I didn't put them on the PowerPoint.
So then looking at the site plan, if the garage is lower than the house, there's a set of stairs that's shown on the site plan between the garage and the house. So those stairs would go up to the front entrance,
Correct.
exactly where you have the pointer.
Yeah, this is the garage. Let's see. The garage again is outlined in green. There is a set of stairs in this area between the garage and sort of the driveway, and then I think there are a couple stairs up here, and the front door is in this area of the house.
And the garage in this graphic is outlined in green.
Correct.
What's immediately to the north of the garage? There's a flat area that appears to be relatively flat in terms of contour lines. Immediately to the north of it.
Right here,
Right.
I think there
Would you
there
have
may
that
be a
in-
couple walls and maybe a walkway. That may be something you can ask the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on. Do I have to call the speaker or? I have to call the applicant first, the project applicant.
Yeah. How do we do the project applicant? Because he is not on the. No, he's not on a call. He's on the WebEx. Okay, Crosby, can you unmute and speak, please? Okay.
Good morning, Roger.
Just introduce yourself, and then 15 minutes to speak, Chris? Is that-
You're the applicant or the property owner?
Yes, the applicant.
The applicant, yeah. You'll have 15 minutes to speak.
Okay, good morning. My name is Crosby Hafner. I'm the homeowner and the applicant. Thanks to the Glendale staff for organizing the meeting, and to you, the planning hearing officer, Mr. Chris Dikian, and to Mr. Roger Kiesel, who has been shepherding me through this process. I've submitted for approval in addition to the existing 1,876 square foot home with a 925 square foot first floor, the rear of the house, and a 1,381 square foot second story, also at the rear of the house. With the exception of the two variance requests being heard today, the project meets all the requirements of the Glendale Code. In the nearly 2 years since I first presented this project, the staff have meticulously inspected it and confirmed that the only non-compliant features are the two variance requests being heard today. Taking the setback variance first, it's most convenient for in order to demonstrate the required findings of fact, to take the four categories of fact in reverse order, beginning with the intent of the ordinance. So that's what I'll do in this case. My house was constructed in 1962, at which time a small corner of its master bedroom was built within the 5-foot setback. The neighboring house finished construction in 1964. The houses are separated by a distance of approximately 30 feet at their closest point and more than 45 feet where the master bedroom encroaches on a 5-foot setback. In addition, the houses are separated by an elevation difference of 20 feet. From the master bedroom, it is not possible to see my neighbor's house and vice versa. In order to see my master bedroom, my neighbors climb 20 feet up the hillside in their backyard and then traverse dozens of feet towards my home in order to reach the property line. There's far more separation between the houses than required under Glendale code. As a result, the fourth variance requirement, that granting the variance is not contrary to the objective of the ordinance, is satisfied. These conditions also demonstrate the third criteria for variance. The interior setback requirement is a protection for neighboring properties, and other than these specific neighbors, does not affect the public welfare. In this case, hillside conditions and the widely varying elevations of the surrounding properties make it difficult or impossible for any other neighboring property to even see the setback area in question. This, together with the fact that the existing conditions provide much more separation than required under code, demonstrate that granting the variance does not harm the public welfare, the property itself, or the surrounding neighborhood. So the third variance requirement is satisfied. The second required finding of fact pertains to the uniqueness of the circumstances. In this case, the relative positions of the neighboring houses and their shared property line is exceptional by definition. There are no other homes which have the same conditions, and these conditions were created and have continued since both houses were built nearly 60 years ago. The staff report also notes the unique design of the house, including the original architectural features of the encroaching master bedroom corner. It's worth noting here that the proposed addition complies with all the setback requirements under the current Glendale code. The variance request only pertains to the existing residence. These are the facts that satisfy the third variance requirement. The first required finding of fact is that the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship. The corner of the home that encroaches on the 5-foot setback is a small sliver of a triangle, less than 6 square feet in size. Strict compliance with the ordinance would require destruction of this corner, harming the original design and the character of the house. The corner in question, which has not been modified from its original 1962 post and beam design, includes a flat roof, floor-to-ceiling windows, wooden ceilings which continue from the interior of the master bedroom to the exterior eaves, a structural bearing wall, a structural exposed interior crossbeam, and a concrete slab foundation. The design challenges, risks to the structural integrity of the house, and expense of destroying the 6 square feet of house in order to rebuild it 18 inches away are a clear example of substantial practical difficulties and unnecessary hardship. Just as importantly, the destruction and rebuilding of the corner of the house would not result in a materially different setback situation. No material increase in privacy, light, air circulation, or separation of structures would be achieved. Thus, a strict application of the ordinance is inconsistent with its purpose and intent. Finally, a key objective of the zoning code is to protect the character of the neighborhood and ensure sensible development. The strict application of the setback code in this case would harm rather than protect the character of this long-standing Glendale home. And the difficulty and expense of strict compliance for de minimis additional separation between the houses, where plenty already exists, is contrary to the meaning of sensible development. For all these reasons, the first variance requirement is satisfied. These are the findings of fact that I respectfully submit in support of the setback variance. For the parking variance, the first question is whether it is possible to add a third covered parking space given the current site conditions. The staff and I have looked at this question carefully, and we all concluded that it is not reasonably possible. The driveway for the property is bounded on one side by a steep downhill embankment that runs along St. Gregory Road. The steepness and the proximity to the public roadway precludes any new structures on this side. The other side of the driveway is bounded by terrace retaining walls and a steep uphill embankment. The house sits on top of this embankment. The retaining walls, steepness of the embankment, and home above preclude any garage space on the opposite side of the driveway. The two-car garage itself, which is at the end of the 80-foot-long driveway, cannot be enlarged. The garage sits at an elevation 8 feet below the house. To enter the house, one must ascend an exterior staircase from the driveway. The southern side of the garage is bounded by this exterior staircase. Enlarging the garage in this direction would eliminate the staircase entry with no other feasible access to the home, and would also require constructing the expanded garage space beneath a portion of the existing home. The eastern side of the garage is bounded by an in-ground swimming pool. A garage expansion in this direction would require the destruction and removal of the pool. The northern side of the garage is bounded by a steep embankment running downhill to St. Gregory Road. The garage level is 30 feet above the adjacent roadway, so that a garage expansion in this direction would require a cantilevered structure hovering 30 feet above the roadway, or a retaining wall of similar height. Such a structure is neither feasible nor sensible. Finally, the western side of the garage is the garage door opening itself. In short, the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties that for the most part cannot be overcome. Cantilevered parking spaces 30 feet above public roadways are no more feasible than constructing hillside garages underneath existing homes. The only feasible solution is destroying the pool in order to build a tandem covered parking space in its place. Technically, this is possible. The area currently supporting a pool could support an additional garage space, but this is clearly an unnecessary hardship. In this case, we have both practical difficulties and unnecessary hardships. The first finding of fact is satisfied. Before I go on to the second finding of fact, I'd like to address the staff's arguments regarding hardship. The staff report implies that practical difficulties are not enough, that both conditions, practical difficulties and unnecessary hardship, must be present to satisfy the first finding of fact. But this is not what the statute says. A plain reading of the code says that only one or the other of these conditions must exist in order to satisfy this component of variance approval. The staff arguments pertaining to hardship also seem to be the crux of the staff's recommendation to deny the parking variance. For this reason, I'd like to address this argument directly. The staff asserts that denying the variance will not result in unnecessary hardship because the house doesn't need to be that big. The argument is that a variance isn't required at all because a smaller house will do. But this argument misses the central point of this hearing. This is a variance hearing. The question is whether applying the ordinance, in this case a parking ordinance, results in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship. Clearly it does, as just described, and as stated in the staff report regarding the difficulty and hardship of enlarging the garage. Instead, what the staff has presented is an argument that says that denying the variance would not constitute a hardship. But the statute asks whether applying the ordinance constitutes a hardship, not whether denying the variance constitutes a hardship. The argument made by staff is that denying the variance is not a hardship because a smaller house will do. But regardless of whether you accept or deny this argument, it does not address the question of whether a variance request should be granted. And it confuses the issues at hand by taking us away from the findings of fact, which are necessary to evaluate the variance questions that are the subject of this hearing. Nevertheless, Roger has told me that I must confront all the arguments of this hearing. So here goes. The assertion is that reducing the project to 3,500 square feet would not constitute unnecessary hardship. But the statements in the staff's report are inconsistent with this conclusion. The staff report confirms that a purpose of the zoning code is to, quote, permit a substantial and reasonable beneficial use of property, unquote. What is a substantial and reasonable use? This is what is defined by the code itself. It includes setback requirements, minimum landscape ratios, height restrictions, lot coverage restrictions, floor area ratios, parking requirements, many, many other things. The code itself sets the standard for what is substantial and reasonable. The staff report also confirms that a home addition means, quote, realizing a substantial beneficial use of the property. This plainly states an important fact. Adding square footage to a residence means realizing a substantial beneficial use of property. But by acknowledging this, we must also acknowledge that limiting the allowable square footage means eliminating some of that beneficial use. Denying the additional square footage means denying the benefits associated with that square footage. In other words, additional square footage and beneficial use go hand in hand. For a project which complies with every other element of the Glendale Code, which this one does, a denial means the loss of a beneficial use that is otherwise allowed by the code. This is inconsistent with the staff's assertion that prohibiting the additional 682 square feet would not result in unnecessary hardship. The hardship is the loss of the beneficial use allowed under the Glendale Code. In a similar vein, the staff says that the size of the proposed addition is egregious, or in the verbal presentation today, excessive. But the size of the addition is what is permitted under the Glendale Code, and the code itself defines the, quote, substantial and reasonable use of property. I would respectfully suggest that an addition which complies with the Glendale Code should be considered reasonable, not egregious. With all that said, I'm going to return to the second required finding of fact for the parking variance. As acknowledged by the staff report, this property does have an exceptional circumstance in its long and straight driveway. The driveway is over 80 feet long, which is unusual in hillside communities where homes often have short or non-existent driveways. My neighbor across the street, for example, has a driveway that is too small to park a car in. He must park his cars in his garage, or more commonly on the street. The fact that my property has a long, straight driveway is the first exceptional characteristic that is relevant to the question of parking spaces. Second, my garage is a two-car garage which cannot be reasonably expanded to include a third covered parking space. This is also an exceptional characteristic. For example, 3 of my 4 adjacent neighbors have garages which could be readily expanded. But the truly exceptional thing about this property is that both of these conditions exist together: a long driveway which terminates at a garage which cannot be expanded. These two unusual conditions are truly exceptional when they exist together. It would be rare in my neighborhood or in any other to find both these conditions together. Sometimes there are long driveways, but they typically end in larger flat pads that could accommodate additional covered parking spaces. And there are garages that cannot be expanded, but they are typically accessed by a short or non-existent driveway. The Glendale R1R zone contains few properties which have both long driveways and two-car garages which cannot be enlarged. These facts make this property exceptional and also address any concern that granting this variance might undermine the importance of meeting parking requirements. For all these reasons, the second finding of fact is satisfied. The third required finding of fact is that granting the variance would not be detrimental to the property or to the neighborhood. The staff report agreed that granting the variance would not be detrimental to the property itself. The only concern raised by the staff is the potential impact on available street parking. And this is based on questioning the attractiveness of parking in my driveway. But I park in my driveway every day. When I have guests, they park in the driveway. My parents in their 70s and my wife's parents also in their 70s park in the driveway. Why? Because the driveway is long and they all prefer a shorter walk to the front door. Yesterday, in preparation for this hearing, I had a few friends come over and park in the driveway. We got 5 cars in the driveway with room to spare, and if we had packed them tighter, we could have gotten a 6th car in there. My neighbor directly across the street from my driveway, who sees me and Roger has a picture of that if we can look at it later if I still have time. My neighbor across the street, who sees me all the time as I come and go, and sees me and my visitors regularly parking in the driveway. Parking there is the most obvious thing to do, and it is the most common use of the driveway. This same neighbor's garage and parking situation is instructive. He has a garage that cannot be enlarged and also has no driveway. As a result, his family parks its vehicles on the street. But across the street, adjacent to my house, the curb is usually empty. Prior to this hearing, he provided a letter stating as much. These facts demonstrate an important point. I have a long driveway that can accommodate 5 off-street parking spaces. My neighbor does not. He has cars parked in front of his house all the time. In front of my house, the curb is empty. This shows that my driveway is used regularly for off-street parking and that its presence benefits the neighborhood by actually reducing the amount of street parking. Another neighbor has also confirmed in a letter that he provided that the stretch of St. Gregory adjacent to my house is not congested by limited parking and that the street parking adjacent to my property is typically vacant. These facts show that granting the variance is not detrimental to the public welfare. My home already provides more than double the off-street parking required under the code, and we have ample evidence that it is used to actually reduce parking congestion. As a result, the third finding of fact is satisfied. The fourth required finding of fact is that granting the variance would not conflict with the objective of the ordinance. As stated by the staff, the intent of the ordinance is to ensure suitable off-street parking, thereby reducing congestion on the public roadways. Both of these requirements have been fully demonstrated. Under the code, 3 parking spaces are required, but my property's driveway and garage together provide 7 parking spaces, more than double the required amount. The further intent of the ordinance is that such off-street parking spaces have the effect of reducing street parking. This intent is not always achieved. Homeowners sometimes use their garages for storage and park their cars on the street. But my neighbors have attested that I consistently use my driveway for off-street parking and that the street adjacent to my house is typically free of parked cars. The conditions of my property and the evidence provided by my neighbors demonstrate that the intent of the ordinance is fulfilled, and for these reasons, the fourth finding of fact is satisfied. In summary, I'm asking that you grant both variances. In the case of the setback, the staff agrees that a variance is warranted. In the case of the 3-car garage, the 2 arguments made by staff against granting this variance are flawed. Constructing a 3rd covering parking space is not possible other than demoing the pool, and surely this is an unnecessary hardship. The argument that avoiding the need for a variance by reducing the size of the project is not applicable to the evaluation of a variance request. And the property does have exceptional characteristics, the long driveway and non-expandable garage, which provide more than twice the off-street parking required under the ordinance, and which we can see is being used in a manner that effectively reduces street parking congestion. For all these reasons, I respectfully submit that all 4 findings of fact can be confirmed for both variance requests. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hafner. I have a couple of questions regarding your proposal here. Looking at the plans, granted the garage and the first floor are at different levels. The garage is lower, and probably the roof of the garage is probably level with the floor of the house, or approximately.
That's correct.
Okay. Looking at your site plan, there is a staircase between the garage and the house that links the driveway to the front door.
That's correct.
Behind this staircase, to the east of it, is that deck space over the garage level or level with the roof of the garage? Is that deck space?
That is deck space, yes. That is level with the level of the house and level with the roof of the garage, which that deck extends over.
So the pool is not located within that space. The pool is located further east.
The pool is located east of the garage, that's right.
And have you investigated possibly to provide an additional garage space within that location, rearranging the staircase going up?
Yes, Roger and another staff member and I talked specifically about that possibility. As stated in my presentation, the problem with that is that there is no other place to put the staircase, and the width of that space is not great enough for a parking space, which means constructing the space under the house. Additionally, that portion of the house that is directly in front of the exterior staircase is actually a sunken part of the house. So its elevation is 2.5 feet, about 2.5 feet below the house level. So it also would not leave enough elevation between the garage floor level and the garage ceiling level, even if we could construct the space underneath the house.
And to the north of the garage, looking at the site plan and the contour lines, there is an area that looks to be relatively flat immediately to the north of the garage, and there's no possibility to expand the garage partially further north?
Yeah, so expanding the garage, so there is a flat walkway there, a dirt walkway that is used to access the far edge of the pool, and but that that those areas are at two different levels, which are not the same as the garage floor level. And if you look at the topography of that area, that structure would require piles that essentially go all the way down to street level. It really would be a 30-foot retaining wall, or else some way to cantilever a parking space over that space.
Okay, what about partially an expansion of the garage to the north and partially expansion of the garage to the south and rearranging the stairs? Was this alternative investigated? Because you will be expanding probably a couple of feet to the north and probably 6 or 8 feet to the south, and then providing a 3-car garage. Now, I would like to point out what you were mentioning in terms of parking in the driveway. Parking in the driveway and parking in the garage, or even open parking, they are not equivalent. Parking in the zoning code is specifically stated it has a certain relatively flat slope to facilitate loading and unloading and opening car doors. A driveway can be steeper, but is not intended for parking purposes. It's intended only for temporary parking purposes. So in a steep driveway, a space that may be available within a driveway may not qualify as an alternative parking space. So this is what I would like to point out, and the zoning code is pretty clear on this. But let's move on regarding the possibility of expanding the garage partially to the north and partially to the south, if that has been investigated, and why that's not doable.
According to my structural engineer, that would require piles that go down 30 feet to street level.
In case is that in case the garage is expanded with a full parking space to the north over the slope?
According to my structural engineer, that would be the case simply to bring the structure of the garage up to current code in its existing footprint.
Okay, so that's structural reinforcements. And how is that addressed in the zoning code in terms of space restrictions or some other restrictions resulting from the property?
I'm not sure of the question. You're asking, how does the zoning code address cantilevering or maybe building a 30-foot like 30-foot piles to support a structure above the roadway?
Well, lacking a cross-section through this, I cannot visualize this, but to the north of the garage, looking at the site plan, the land seems to be relatively flat, and I was wondering why it's not practical to expand the garage a couple of feet to the north and a few feet to the south, relocating or rearranging the staircase and thereby complying with the parking requirements. So if I have to understand why this is not doable. We've investigated adding a full parking space to the north of it because there's a slope. To the east of it, it's not doable because there's a pool that blocks it. Fully to the south because it affects the house configuration, and adding that space to the west is the driveway. But why not partially expanding the garage to the north and partially to the south? A combination.
So I think the answer is twofold. First, and I'm not a structural engineer, but my structural engineer, what I understand from him is that piles or, structural piles that are used in hillside locations must go down. Those footings must go down to a point where the slope, the exposed slope of the hillside reaches a 2-to-1 ratio, basically a 45 degree. And so any piles supporting even the garage in its current place would need to go down to a point where that condition is met in order to begin to meet California building code. And that angle, that 45-degree angle, is not achieved on that slope until the slope reaches the roadway, which is 30 feet below. Also, you might also, as Roger, I think can confirm, is that when we looked at the stairway, we did not see a feasible way to continue to access the front door while moving the stairway. And then thirdly, let's say that we could have a 3-car garage, like 3 cars in a line. I think is what you're speaking to. That would require not only cantilevering or supporting in some way the third space or some portion of that third space over the roadway with supports that go all the way down. But not just where that parking space is, but also the whole western edge of the driveway. Because in order to access that third space, the driveway itself would have to be widened.
Okay, so there are structural difficulties with partially enlarging the garage to the north and partially to the south.
Yes, as I stated in my presentation, the only feasible way to add a third car would be to remove the pool and take the northern parking space and extend it back. So there are 2 tandem spaces on the left and then the 1 single space on the right.
And that would involve removing the pool.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Thank you for your comments. Let's move on to other speakers. And Mr. Hafner, you'll have a chance to rebut at the end of the hearing. Who's holding now?
We've got a number of people holding. So should I?
Okay, so public comments will be limited to 3 minutes in this case. Can we go to the next speaker?
Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Narciso. Can you hear me?
Yeah, this is me, Narciso Solano. Good morning.
Great. You're on the air. You have 3 minutes to talk. Thank you.
Please state your name.
Thank you. Yeah, and good morning, everyone. My name is Narciso Reedy Solano. I am the owner of 2974 St. Gregory Road, and I strongly oppose this construction project and passionately request you to not grant Crosby Hafner the 2 variances he's seeking. In the past, we have several instances where he violated some hillside development policies by impacting the life of my family and our family. To begin, I wanted to say that, and he totally has disregarded the hillside development policy, and I want to quote this: development shall be compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods in terms of size, scale, bulk mass, roof line, orientation, setback, and site layout, end quote. This new proposal is really not compatible with the size of the homes in the neighborhood. Mr. Hafner plans to build a house that is more than double the size of his current property, and that makes it radically larger than most surrounding homes. The second issue here is that the setback of the homes in St. Gregory range between 7 feet and 100 100 foot. None of those are 5 meters in setback. And the current setback code is 10 feet for property lines that was established in 1991 for the welfare of the people, for the homeowners, especially the R1R. Please honor this proposed requirement. The proposed new roof line from Mr. Hoffner, new construction is 2.5 feet from our property line. And this is really not a good idea. We already have property line disputes between Mr. Hoffner and my family. Another issue here is he's completely altering the terrain of the property. He already carved tons of dirt from the back of his property. Now we have a view of a 25-foot high wall of gray cement on the back of our yard. And yes, we do use our yard. And we have a view of his window from our property. Mr. Hoffner also has damaged 2 oak trees. One is in our property line, has cut the roots of those trees, and also has removed a California bay tree that it was sitting on the back of his yard to build this new retaining wall. We urge you to wait for the city's attorney's report, for the city arborist report before approving any plan. Now, if we go to the back of our yard, the view of our western side is this huge retaining wall in grade. Mr. Hoffman and our family, like I indicated in the past, we have several disputes on property line, trespassing our property. His workers building plans. He tore off my fence that I built once, and he continues to do that until just a year or two. He built a fence and are only a couple inches from his property line, which goes to nowhere. At one point, he fed our dogs with raw meat that induced it to take our pets to a hospital and pay hospital bills. We do have a police report to attest that. And I really urge you to consider the letters of the neighbors stating the difficulties of parking in the area and our argument is deny this 2 variances. I really like this neighborhood. I love the streets, but this action really ruined the spirit of good living. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Next speaker.
I'm going to try this next speaker. I may not have anybody, though. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Nope. Okay. Miss Anna, hi. You're at the planning hearing officer hearing. Can you hear me? Miss Anna? Hello? Okay. I'm going to put her on hold and go to the next person. Mr. Andy, you're on the air at the planning hearing officer hearing. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you for your patience.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Andy Allison. I'm with the Glendale Historical Society. I do want to note that the Glendale Historical Society wrote a letter about this project that you should have received. I hope that you can double check just to make sure you've received that. But I just want to state that we note that this house on St. Gregory was designed by a prominent local architect, Charles Walton, whose firm is still in existence here in Glendale at 320 Arden, in a prize-winning building that he designed. Among his projects with his partner, Raymond Jones, here in Glendale are the Central Bank of Glendale building, the Glendale Unified School District Headquarters building, and the Brand Library and Art Center addition, as well as the renovation of City Hall. Mr. Walton specialized in public projects, including libraries and schools, and he was one of the original members of the Glendale Design Review Board, which was formed in 1986 to raise architectural standards within the city. We believe that the property's association with Walter would make it potentially eligible for historic resource status here in Glendale. We understand that there's been an historical resources evaluation of the house, but we don't see that in the staff report, and it would be better understood if we could see that assessment and if that was included in the staff report. Based on our review of the permit records, there doesn't appear to be anything in the past that would disqualify it from being considered as an historic resource. So, in summary, just to wrap this up, we request that no decision be made on this project until the question of its historic status is resolved. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next speaker.
Ms. Parker, hi, you're on the air at the Planning Hearing Officer hearing. Can you hear me? Ms. Parker? I'm going to put you on hold for a few minutes. Dr. Solano. Dr. Solano? Hi, you're on the air. Can you hear me? Dr. Solano? Okay. Dr. Solano, you're on the air. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi, yes, you're on the air. Thanks for your patience.
Okay, I will start now. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeanette Reedy Solano, and I have lived next door to 2960 at 2974 St. Gregory Road, off and on, since 1979. My family has lived in and served Glendale since 1932. We asked for a continuance to allow for the city's arborist report and vital fact findings from building and safety to be included in this hearing process. I offer two main reasons for denial of the two variances, both of which are detailed in my letter to Mr. Kiesel, along with photographic proof. Reason number one, variance considerations are not supported. The opposite is true. Reason two, plans systematically omit and misrepresent trees on the property. Point A, the city asserts that the setback has functioned well for 50 years, and there has been, quote, no discernible negative impact from the non-code compliant 3-foot 6-inch setback. This is incorrect. The tiny setback and bedroom wall of windows has led to all sorts of privacy problems. As we see it all, since Hafner has refused for 13 years to put up curtains, and now he wants to build a bathroom and a shower 5 feet from our yard, we asked that the city apply the current 10-foot setback to this project. We also asked the city require Hafner to bring his problematic corner room up to code. It is not an unnecessary hardship to amend 6 square feet when he is dramatically changing the first floor footprint and adding 925 square feet. He is also misrepresenting the parking situation on St. Gregory. Point B of the variance code, there is an exceptional circumstance. By court order, a portion of the land which is immediately alongside the proposed new 2-story structure will soon revert to us, the proper owners, and we plan to finally utilize and build on this patio area. Allowing an almost 30-foot high 2-story structure 5 feet away negatively impacts our future use of the land. Point number C, the code states the granting of the variance should not be materially detrimental to the public welfare in the neighborhood. Hillside carving is detrimental. Crosby has removed approximately 500 cubic yards of soil, and permits are being investigated regarding this, and no inspections are on record. Hafner claims the addition will be not readily visible to surrounding properties. Again, this is not true. The structure will be visible from the retaining walls of our neighbors to the north and negatively impact our view as well. His past 2 construction projects have left us and neighbors with a view of cement, exposed pipes, and a galvanized steel pipe fence seen from the street, again, with an expired permit. Hafner has no concern for the well-being of his neighbors, nor the welfare or aesthetics of the neighborhood. Point number D, the granting of the variance shall not be contrary to the objective of the ordinance, which is to protect the character of the neighborhood and ensure sensible development. This is not sensible development. The proposed home is more than double the size of the average homes in our neighborhood, and Glendale needs to preserve our mid-century gems like 2960. We don't need more McMansions or another Silver Lake. The final reason, Hafner's submitted architectural plans and plotted trees are grossly inaccurate and are being investigated. Therefore, we request a moratorium on building at 2974 St. Gregory Road due to this deception, which is supported by Municipal Code 12.44 0.140, if supported by the pending city arborist investigation due next week. To conclude, now is the time for the city of Glendale to hold Hafner accountable, to correct an error made years ago. Listen to the many neighbors who have taken the time to write letters opposing this construction that you did not read. And finally, please do not grant a 5-foot setback variance that erodes privacy. We can't change the past destruction of Hafner's actions that he's done to our trees, to our natural habitat, and to our family by poisoning our dogs. However, the city can make it right moving forward, and we humbly beseech you to do so. Thank you for your time and consideration, his next-door neighbor.
Dr. Solano, I have a question, if I may.
Dr. Solano, are you still on the air? Dr. Solano, are you still on the air?
It's a recording. It's a replay of the recording.
I can't understand. Would you like me to put her on hold? Or
It's a delayed
it's her
repeat.
recording.
Yeah.
Got it. Dr. Solano?
Yeah,
Hi.
okay. It's kind of a delay, but I'll try to
Yeah.
listen to you on my phone.
Hi, yes. The planning hearing officer, Mr. Bagdikian, has some questions for you.
Wonderful.
Hi, Dr. Solano, you mentioned there's a property line issue where the proposed addition is going to go. Is this along the south side of the property or somewhere else?
No, this is in the rear eastern side of the property.
Eastern side of the subject property.
Right. Our boundary with Mr. Hafner is we're on his eastern side. We are the home directly to his right if you're looking out.
Okay, and the boundary question would be along the southern portion of this property line or somewhere else?
The eastern side. The eastern rear side is the problematic area.
Well, the eastern property line of the subject property is a long property line. Which portion of this property line is affected?
I'm sorry, you're kind of breaking up in the ad. I'm sorry.
Okay.
What are you asking about the property line? We're mostly concerned with this construction in the rear. It's his eastern boundary line with 2974.
Okay, and that's where there's some contention about the property line?
There's been a very long and litigious problem with the borders. Yes, he has repeatedly built structures on our property, and by court order, we're getting the property back soon. And so this proposed two-story structure dramatically impacts our ability to use the land in the future, and he's already just built. Building and Safety is looking into a wall that he built in the setback, and they can't find a permit right now. And he's already built up to that property line. And so, yes, there's lots of issues in this, by the rear corner bedroom window, the wall of windows. It was illegally constructed only 3 feet away. The city made a mistake. And now we're asking for that to be brought up to code. And now the current code is 10 feet for interior structures. If you were going to build a new structure, it's 10 feet. And that was established to preserve privacy in R1R zone. This is not Silver Lake. And he's proposing something where you can just reach out and literally 2.5 feet touch the roof line.
Okay, but Dr. Solano, let me clarify my question. Is there a contention on where the property line is located, or the subject property owner has built walls and other items crossing the property boundary?
Yes, he has. And I have pictures that I sent to the city confirming that he has built structures that extend into our property.
Okay, and I guess those are not shown on the plans. The plan shows the finished product.
He still has he has 2 exhibits. I have 2 extensive photographic exhibits showing the situation.
Is there any question about where the property line is located?
Well, not according to surveys, but we have in the past put in markers, and Crosby has pulled out those markers, and we've just urged the city to not go by his plans because they're inaccurate, and to actually go by the survey report that is recorded. And I think Roger Kiesel knows it's 3.6 inches.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Solano.
Thank you for considering our plight.
Roger, before we move on, are there plans that show construction on the subject site that's not shown on the project plans under review today?
That I don't know for sure. I haven't been to the site in a while. That's what the Solanos are contending. I don't know.
Okay, because we need to figure out if there are concurrent development plans that are not reflected in the proposed project, and whether, if there are concurrent plans, if they are independent of what is being proposed in here.
Right, the plans show a 3-foot 6-inch interior setback, according to their drawings, according to the property line.
The project plans under review today?
Dr. Solano, can you mute your TV, please?
I haven't been to the site in a while. That's what.
Dr. Solano, can you please mute your TV? Thank you. I'm actually, sorry. Okay. Should we go on to the next caller?
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna try a couple callers that we have missed and see if they're available now.
How many more do we have pending?
4,
Okay,
not including the 2 that we've skipped, so.
so 6 probably. will-
Yeah, Miss Anna, are you available? Can you hear me? Miss Anna? Miss Parker, can you hear me? Okay, we'll go on. Good morning, Mr. Heidecker. You are on the air. Can you hear me? Mr. Heidecker, can you hear me? You're on the air? Good morning, Miss Heidecker. You're on the air. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for taking my call.
Sure. I believe your husband I could not hear. So
Yeah, I don't. He's in a different part of the house. I don't even.
okay. So thank you for your patience. You have 3 minutes to talk.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to voice my concern about 2 different issues. The first is the garage issue. St. Gregory Road has very limited parking already. It's a kind of a winding small street, and there's already issues with parking, and especially on that curve just before you reach Mr. Hafner's house. Not having that extra parking for a very large house is a deep concern for me. I have 2 kids. The street is already pretty dangerous, and with the parking issues, it just makes it more so. The second issue is the 5 feet variance from the property. This is a great concern for me because we are obviously living in a canyon. It's already a fire risk. If we allow this 5 feet instead of 10 feet variance, this could set a dangerous precedent for future homes, and we will be all living on top of each other, and it's a dangerous fire hazard in my mind. That's all.
Ms. Heidecker, would you state your address, please?
Sure, it's 2984 St. Gregory Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to your husband briefly and
Okay.
see if he's available. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Heidecker, hi. You're on the air at the Planning Hearing Officer hearing. Can you hear me? Mr. Heidecker? Okay, I'll put you on hold again. Miss Athanasian? Sorry, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello?
Hi, yes, you're on air at the planning hearing officer hearing?
Yeah. Is this Athanasios Vakalis?
I'm sorry?
Is this for Athanasios? Did you call Athanasios Vakalis?
This is for 2960 St. Gregory Road?
Yes.
Yes, okay, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. Yeah. So we are Mr. Hafner's next door neighbors. We're on 2950 St. Gregory Road. And I don't know if we came a little bit late in the discussion, so we don't know whether you read our letter or not. We sent a letter last week. We also would urge you to deny the variances. First of all, the problem of the parking is very real on St. Gregory. The city recently took away 5 spots by painting the curb red. Also, there's a new construction that's going to take away at least 1 or 2 parking spots for their driveway. And we believe that the house that is more than 4,000 square feet, it's for a larger household that will have more cars, and so the parking of or the garage of the 2-car garage is not enough. So he needs to have more parking spots. And the place exactly where he has to back up his cars from the driveway is already very cramped and very dangerous. The second issue of the 5 feet variant, for us, it's very close to our border. One of the reasons that we actually bought this house was the privacy. Because we feel like we are very secluded in our property. So we really feel like our privacy is violated if he builds so close to our property, and especially when he's going to raise the second floor even more, because he will be directly by our driveway and our house. So, we need to feel secluded. So we are actually, if this passes, we are actually looking to move away from this house, probably sell it and make a very expensive move, just to fill to find another property that has a seclusion. So yeah, that's why we bought in this area of Glendale. Because we felt that we were so close to the nature, and we were very secluded and private up here. But if this starts to change, we'll have to even change city. Hold on. Can also my husband talk?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
The owner of the house with my wife here, Athanasios Vakalis. I want to say that this neighbor, from the moment he purchased this property, he's been building on it. He recently built a retaining wall right on the border with our property. He destroyed a couple of trees in our property because he cut the roots of them to build that wall. He removed tons of dirt, and I'm afraid he made our driveway unstable because of that. Our driveway, if you can see the plan of this house, has the sewage line going through the driveway. So the driveway is divided. It has a trench on the bedrock along its length, which is almost 10 feet deep. And now all this piece of rock is only held by his retaining wall, and if something happens, it's going to end up on his house. It's very dangerous to build there, I think, because of the way of the terrain. And again, the other issues, as my wife pointed out, it's the privacy. It's the parking problem. As you might know, there is a new restaurant on Chevy Chase that is attracting a lot of traffic, and these people now start filling their parking on Chevy Chase and in the St. Gregory. So it made actually the situation even worse. There is a couple of houses that were just built on Cornwell. Is that Cornwell? On Cornwell. And again, our neighbor here, another neighbor is building on an empty lot, and that's going to create more demand for parking spaces. He will need for a 4,500 square feet house, which is very rare in these areas up here. He will need to have at least 3-car garages to accommodate for the amount of members in his family. When the city put those variances, I'm sure they study a lot and they know what they were doing. And, they've been enforcing them to a lot of other properties, and people who wanted to build, they had to comply with these rules. These rules are not put there just to make people's lives difficult. They're put there for a reason. Civil engineers and architects and people who deal with these things know why they're making these rules. They are not just making them for no reason, so they have to be obeyed. And if this city needs to be true to the rules and the laws that it has established. Otherwise, we are not living in a society that is guarded by law. We live in a society that someone decides to do whatever he wants, and the city complies to that and gives him a permit. That's unacceptable. If that happens, I'm going to be living with my wife, the city of Glendale, and never return. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
We do have 2 more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go on.
Mr. Reedley, hi. This is Roger Kiesel. You're on the air in the planning hearing officer hearing. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. You have 3 minutes.
Starting now?
Starting now.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Dante Reedy Solano. I am a resident of 2974 St. Gregory Road, and I strongly oppose this construction project and passionately request that you do not grant Crosby Hafner the 2 variances he seeks. Hafner's past, present, and proposed actions directly violate Glendale's hillside development policy. His actions have negatively impacted me and my family and the entire neighborhood. To begin, the proposed construction disregards the hillside development policy. Development shall be compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods in terms of size, scale, bulk, mass, roof line, orientation, setbacks, and layout, according to the Glendale City Code, unquote. Incompatibility of the size home. Mr. Hafner plans to more than double the size of his existing home, making it radically larger than any other surrounding homes. The second issue would be the setback of homes on St. Gregory Road range from 7 feet to 100 feet and are a mere 5 feet exemption. The current setback code of 10 feet of property line was established in 1991 for the welfare of homeowners, especially in R1R. Please honor it. As countless people have said, we do not want Chevy Chase to become a new Silver Lake. The third issue would be the alteration of the train. Mr. Hafner has dramatically altered the train at the rear of his property by removing approximately 500 cubic yards of granite, soil, green hill, and is now a 25-foot high wall of gray cement. The fourth issue would obviously be the local arbory or the tree. Mr. Hafner has also harmed the roots of 2 live coastal oaks, which are a protected species, and killed and removed the California bay tree, which is an indigenous protected species in the city of Glendale. We urge you to just wait on the city's arborist report before granting any of these variances, which is only a few weeks away. And secondly, another point would be our western wall is now has cement exposed spike fence to nowhere, and this new home will negatively impact 2 neighbors' views. We argue that his actions should be taken into consideration when granting the variances because distance is critical between the neighbors of Hatcherstown. And just to describe some of the etiquette we've had to deal with, or lack of the before etiquette. Hafner likes to party and blast music into the wee hours of the morning. The police have been called multiple times to deal with this. Trespassing and voyeurism. Hafner has workers have repeatedly trespassed on our property lines. He has ripped out property fence posts as previous testifiers have described. And thirdly, and most importantly, would be the injury to our pets. Hafner fed our two dogs, Joshua and Abby, at the time, on Mother's Day 2015, a raw meat dipped in antifreeze for which he admitted the officer he had been doing for several months. We have lab reports and a police report to confirm this. And our concerns have not been handled by the city. And I've seen him multiple times staring at my sister working out, and it's just really upset me. And if I were to ever inherit this house, I would just want as much space from this man as possible. And I know there's not a lot you can do in terms of the past destruction, but the city can make it right now moving forward. I urge you to consider our neighbors' letters, the arborist report, which is due in a week, and our arguments, and deny Hafner's request for the variances. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Next speaker. Good morning, Mr. Heidecker. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi. You're on the planning hearing officer hearing. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm calling in to also lodge my complaint about the renovation for 2960 St. Gregory Road. I live 2 doors down at 2984 St. Gregory Road. I have great sympathy for my direct neighbors, the Solanos, who live next door to 2960. And after looking at the variances that Mr. Hafner has requested, it seems absolutely unreasonable. And for the sake of my neighborhood, I'm calling in to request that the variances are not granted. I feel like if Mr. Hafner wants to double the property size on his land, then he has ample funds to find a larger house somewhere else. It seems ridiculous to take the real estate property in this beautiful little tucked away neighborhood and try to extend it to every possible inch. And it just, why do we have any of these regulations at all if they can just be lobbied against and overturned? I think they're there for a reason. They're important. And I hope that you and the board adhere to them. And if you don't, it draws questions about the point of having the board at all. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We did just get another phone call.
Okay.
Miss Reedy, hi. You're on the air at the planning hearing officer hearing. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi. Can you please mute your?
Am I speaking now?
You are. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Can you mute your television or whatever you've got on?
Is it okay now?
Sounds like it's better. Yes. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to say that I am a member of the Reedy family and lived at that address. And my family still lives there at 2974. And I would like to reiterate all the points that have been made. I think that as you see the totality of the concern of the neighbors on either side of this property at 2960, you will see that over the last decade and more, there has been great harm done to both families on either side of the property. And I want to reiterate all the statements that have been made about, especially the point about the garage issue and the 5-foot variance exception that's being requested. I would like to address specifically the nature of the property. It's up on a hill, as you know, and it's right by a blind curve on St. Gregory. And I know this has been mentioned before, but I want to point out that both going up and down that very narrow road, it is quite dangerous to the people on either side of that property, especially on the lower side. It's a completely blind curve, and the driveway goes right down to the street at the blind curve. And with an additional doubling of the square footage, with additional visitors coming frequently because there are parties held frequently there, it just causes such a danger to the children and the families and the elderly that are living nearby. That is one concern. And then the other concern is what both neighbors on either side mentioned about the privacy issues. I think that past behavior can predict future behavior. So I think it's important to note that any additional square footage, and especially any variance from the, any exceptions to the variance down to 5 feet would allow much more intrusion and the right of privacy on the people on either side, and not to mention the tree destruction. So I also urge that you wait for the arborist report, please. And also, in the design, there's a roof overhang that would only be 2.5 feet from the boundary line. So that is something that really needs to be considered, because that would cause even more intrusion on the neighboring properties. And I also want to reiterate, in terms of the general precedent setting, we wouldn't want to set a precedent in Glendale to become another Silver Lake or places like that, where you have unsightly overhangs and intrusion on others' rights. So thank you so much for considering all these requests from the neighbors and the impact on their families. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reedy.
Thank you.
Anybody else holding Mr. Keith?
Let me just quickly try the two people that we haven't gotten one more time, and just... Miss Anna, are you on the air? Hello. Miss Parker, hi, you're on the air. Are you there? Okay, we're done.
Let's move on to the rebuttal from the property owner, Mr. Hafner. And you'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'll just say a few things. First, all of the structures that are on the property line, the Reedies claimed that the plans are not accurate. All the structures that have been built are built to plan for the retaining wall. There isn't anything built that isn't part of that plan, and the plans are accurate. The second thing is there is a statement about the driveway, and it's true that parking on a driveway, the driveway parking does not fulfill the parking code, the requirement for a covered parking space under the ordinance. That is the reason for this variance request. But the driveway does fulfill the intent of the parking code, which is to provide off-street parking and to reduce the traffic or parking congestion on the street. We have evidence of that in the two neighbor letters that were submitted. The next thing is that it's true that this addition would make the house large, but not unusually so. Directly across the street at 2965 St. Gregory, there's a 2-story house that is the same size as this proposed project. 4 houses further up the street at 2911 St. Gregory, there's a 2-story house that is larger by 100 square feet. And 3 houses down on the other side at 3000 Cornwall is a 2-story house that is more than 1,000 square feet larger. So the house would be large, but it is not out of scale with the neighborhood. What is unusual is that this is a single-story house, and the vast majority of the homes in this neighborhood are 2 stories. Adding a second story would actually make this home more consistent with the other 2-story homes in the neighborhood. And as the staff points out, this addition would not be very visible to the neighbors or to the neighborhood. Finally, with respect to the comments about parking congestion, it is true, and you can see that on the downhill side of St. Gregory, before the curve that wraps around this property, There is sometimes the people there, actually some of the people that, some of the Reedy family, they will sometimes will park up here past that curve because there is a little bit of parking congestion down there. But that is, when that happens, it's really noticeable because there isn't any parking congestion past the curve, as has been attested by the other neighbors. And one of the callers mentioned that recently there was a red painted curb that was installed, and that's also true. There was a red painted curb that was installed around the curb itself, which is really a good improvement that the city of Glendale did because it's good to have some additional width in that road. But the city circulated a request for comment from this neighborhood about that red curb. And the city still has those records. It did receive a letter from me asking that the length of that curb remain as originally painted, rather than being reduced by about 40 feet after some complaints by the neighbors below the curb. That's because there isn't parking congestion in this area of St. Gregory, and it is a benefit. It would actually be welcome to have more red curbs in this part of the street. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hafner, I have a question of you, if I may.
Sure.
Several of the speakers mentioned some construction of retaining walls and other construction at the boundary, at the property line. Is all the construction that's permitted or that you're going to request reflected on the site plan and on the proposed plans here that we have in front of us? Or are there other permit applications that are not reflected in our review today?
There is only one permit application before the city of Glendale. I think what was referred to was the building of a large retaining wall, which that permit was granted by the city maybe 5 years ago, in 2015 or 2016.
And is that wall reflected in the plan here that we have in front of us?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this plan is complete.
This plan is complete, yes.
All right. Thank you,
Mr. Begdeacon, I did want to clarify something. There are a couple expired permits according to our record-keeping system, one of which is, I believe, that rear retaining wall that everybody's referring to. So the property owner will need to rectify that because it's currently expired.
So if the permit has expired, has construction started, or the entire proposal is gone?
Construction, I believe, has started, but the permit has expired.
Okay, so in order to proceed with that construction, the wall, is that wall shown on this plan as part of the plan?
Yes, I believe it is. It's the back part of the house.
Okay.
Again, I'm just, based on how people are describing some of these walls on the property and our description in our computer record-keeping system, that appears like the back rear wall is one of the walls they're referring to. I'm not sure about the other walls, but I know there are two permits according to CSI that have expired.
Okay, thank you. And I have a couple of other questions of you, if I may. Several speakers mentioned oak trees and pending the city's forestry division review. What's the status of that review? Because I didn't see any comments from the forestry division in the written comments that were provided by the city department. Sure.
Initially, the forestry department was fine with the proposed project. They went out to the site and looked at it last year. Since that point, there has been a code enforcement case opened on the subject site, and this was recently opened. And I received something from the urban forester, or name is Catherine Williams. I'm not sure her title. Catherine Williams last night, stating that they're not sure whether they have concerns now based on some property line issues and fence issues. But initially, they were fine with what was being proposed.
So at this point, do we know if our forestry division has determined that the proposed construction will be acceptable in terms of the existence of the oak trees on the property?
Based on the code enforcement case that was opened recently, it's my understanding that they are going out to the site soon, so they don't have a recommendation at this point.
And do we know if whatever construction item is triggering this is reflected on the plans, or that's something different?
You know, I can't be for sure based on the descriptions. You know, there's the property line dispute. The urban forester, Ms. Williams, mentioned something about fencing around oak trees. I can't ascertain whether those things are reflected on the plans or how accurate they
Okay, so that needs further investigation.
are. Right.
Roger, I spoke to Catherine today. Would you like me to share what she told me?
That's up to the planning hearing officer.
We would need to have her comment in writing in the file, plus the public has to be given a chance to comment on that, plus it has to be incorporated in our staff's recommendation in the report and the findings. So,
Understood.
if you can tell us verbally, that will be fine, but we still need to proceed with our normal process for that. I'd like to close the public session. I had one more question of Mr. Kiesel. There was also mention about building and safety comments. Initially, when I inquired about them, building and safety comments you mentioned were standard. Is there anything else that we need to know regarding this construction or permit items that have been brought up next to the property line and retaining walls?
Not to my knowledge. Some of that has been described in the letters that we've gotten in the last week or so, and the code enforcement case that has been opened.
Okay. And the code enforcement case is regarding the oak tree or construction, or both?
I think it's both because they're both kind of related. I believe, although I'm not sure, that there's some contention that there is construction existing on the site that never got a permit, potentially in addition to the two items that got a permit, but the permit expired. And I think that's the sort of the genesis of the code enforcement case, but I'd have to review it CSI to determine.
So the way I see this, there are still questionable items that may or may not be included in these plans and our review. Besides that, I'd like to point out there are a set of findings, additional findings, in addition to the 4 findings that are in the staff report and the application. and they need to be addressed either for approval or denial of a proposal for variances. Those findings are in Chapter 30.11 of the zoning code and specifically relate to hillside residential development. Given all this, I'd like to table the case so that we can obtain all the pending information that is not incorporated in this review, and then re-advertise, renotice the project so that the public can be given a chance to review the entire record and make appropriate comments. So having said this, I'd like to table the case today. New notices will be sent out when the case is ready for review again.
Can I clarify in case the applicant or some of the concerned neighbors have questions of me?
Okay.
So the information you would like is, are all structures existing on the site currently reflected on the site plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Whether they're proposed to remain or be removed, they need to be addressed.
Okay. And then there are questions about an easement or a property line?
I asked questions regarding the property line. The property line itself doesn't seem to be an issue. It's construction at or crossing property boundaries.
Okay.
And in the plans, I don't see construction or proposed construction across property lines. So this needs to be investigated. And the third component is unresolved oak tree questions.
Okay.
Or indigenous tree protection questions. And the fourth item is required additional findings
Right.
that
Okay.
haven't been addressed yet.
Okay.
So I'm tabling this because some of these questions may require additional comments from other departments. We need to contact them. So at this point, it's not feasible to continue to a specific date because we don't know how long these investigations or this review will take. So when the case is ready to be brought back for public review, we will require new noticing so that everybody can get informed of the hearing date.
Okay.
And the staff report probably will reflect the amendments or the changes. So I'd like to conclude this hearing. So the case is tabled pending renoticing. Thank you. This concludes the planning hearing officer's hearing for October 28, 2020, and the time is 11:42.